Hello everyone, I'm so glad you're here. I have a scrapbook layout planned for you today featuring the Gnomes for Spring collection, and I'm documenting these photos of my mom. These just make me really happy. She loves to garden and she has passed that passion on to me, so it's something we share. But she was planting, we were shopping for flowers at the nursery and then planting her containers with some spring bulbs, and she just looks so happy. I love it. So the colors in this spring collection are going to be perfect. And look at this one here. It has garden icons on it, and she's gardening, so it seems like a perfect match. The other side is a slightly different variation. You still have the little garden icons, but we have the cute little gnomes on this side. But I do like the glacier color. The color of my mom's shirt is like a deeper tone of that, so I really like how that works together. But let me put these to the side and grab my Versamat. This is a single page layout because I just have the 3 photos. These are just shy of 3 by 3 squared, and then we have a 4 by 5 1/4, and that does include the white border. So I definitely want to use this one here. And then I've got some scraps. I love the word paper, but the 2 of those together are kind of busy. You know, you can always break it up with some cardstock, but I think I'm going to go with this stripe piece here. So I often kind of just let my scraps, dictate the direction of the layout. This one is 4 1/4 by 12. I do have some other scraps here. I've got some smaller pieces. There's this yellow plaid also, which is nice. And then, different. I like my stripes going up and down. So yeah, we'll go with this one for now. Now, I already kind of had this layout planned out in my mind. I want my focal photo kind of right here, and then I thought I could make like a row underneath, and I could put my journaling here, so I could do 3 squares. If you had a third or a fourth photo, you could do the squares all the way across, or use this spot for your journaling, or even put your journaling in the middle. But I like this, and for my title, there's the Gnomes for Spring scrapbooking stamp. I've used this one on a previous layout, but I like this one here, Spring Has Sprung, and they're pretty good size. So I want to stamp that on the background. So it's not going to show up. It's going to look a little weird stamped on the pattern paper. So we need a solid piece or a more subdued pattern, which I don't really have. So let's go with some cardstock. So what we could do is just add some white. That always looks really nice behind stamped images because they really show up. So we could do a frame style layout and then have our photo here. Now this is printed with a white border, so I'm going to want to bring in some cardstock behind that. But I think that's going to look good, and then I can stamp my title right there. So let me cut this down. So this is 6, I just cut it at 6 1/4 by 10. And I will end up gutting out what I have hidden behind here, but we're going to have an inch margin on the top and sides, and then this one will sit across the bottom here. So actually what I'm going to do is bring in a piece of white daisy, and I'll cut out the center, and I'll cut off this portion down here. So looking at my Versamat, this needs to be 7 1/2 inches. So we'll just cut off a piece at 7 1/2, and then we can use that for another project. And those are 1 inch wide borders, so I know I need at least more than that so I can attach my layer here. So let's go ahead and bump this down to 1 1/2 inches, and then we are going to stop at 6 here. That gives us 1 1/2 inch, and then we'll do the same on this side here. You definitely need a paper trimmer this style. A guillotine trimmer doesn't work very well for gutting paper like this. And then we'll just flip it and go this way. 1 1/2 right there. Just drop it down where your cut starts, and then you can go across. Perfect. Lots of paper left over for a different project. Now what you could do is just bring in your white daisy base and then have this, and then you still have that white piece in there, but I don't quite want it that big. I cut it in order to have, enough to attach that. So I'm just going to layer this piece over the top anyway, but you could do that, and that would save even more paper. So let's bring this down, bring this in like that. And I am liking that. I thought it'd be nice to layer a little zip strip, which is the branding strip across the where they connect here. So we could do this one, which brings in, if I could grab it, some of that toffee. There's also some border stickers on the sticker sheet, but I think I kind of like bringing in the toffee here, which is in the little pots and the fences and whatnot in the background. So let's bring in our photos. Now you could put this straight, but sometimes it's nice to offset things. And let's do this. We'll go like that. Now I don't get a whole lot of opportunities to use pinks because it doesn't lend itself well to my photos. So when I do get the chance, I like to go for it. We've got the pink and tones here in the tulips there. So I think that that is going to look nice. It's in the stripe pattern and then in the little mushrooms and tulips in the background too. So I'm going to go ahead and cut some photo mats. So these are going to be double matted because they have the little white border there. And then I made these extra, not extra thick, but I made them a little bit more substantial around the edge because we have that striped paper and I want there to be a definite, obvious delineation between the stripes and the photo mat there. I'm going to work on my title. Now nothing is adhered down, that way if I mess the stamping up, I can very easily just flip over the white daisy cardstock and no one will ever know. So we're going to use Spring Has Sprung. You want to get a block large enough to, work for that size. And we're going to stamp that right there. And I have been using charcoal ink with this collection, just something a little softer than black. And if you look at like the watering can and some of the other elements, it's kind of a brownish gray. So I'm using the charcoal. And instead of just stamping this directly on there, maybe let's do a little ink blending first. I decided to go with Glacier. I think it'll be a nice subtle color behind my title. And if you're picking up on a slight difference in my voice, yes, I woke up with a cold. So if you're picking up on that, that's what that's all about. Now I'm using my blending brush and I'm blotting it off first. Normally I start underneath an embellishment or a picture and radiate out, but I don't have that option here. So we're just blotting it off very carefully so we don't get any dark irregularities in our ink blended area. I think that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and flip the Versamat over so we have that nice foam cushion for our stamping. And I always say it, you want to practice, practice, practice. So let me grab a piece of scratch paper really quick so we can make sure we're getting a nice crisp image. That looks pretty good. Now you'll also notice I'm walking it around on the ink pad. Don't just keep tapping in one spot. Most people tend to go to the center. Move it around the ink pad and you'll get better coverage. Okay, let's line this up with our Glacier background. Give it just a moment and beautiful. I almost always ink up the edges of my paper layers, but I've been watching my friend Katie over on her channel. You guys might know her as Scrappin' Katie, and she's famous for adding fun little doodling elements. So rather than ink up the edges, I'm using my gray Le Pen journaling pen, and I'm going to draw a border. I don't want this perfectly straight, so I'm just hand drawing it, and we'll go all the way around the perimeter of our white space or our white piece, and that'll give us that definition just like inking the edges would. I can go ahead and tape down my little border strip here and then just lining it up with the same level on my Versamat, left to right. That looks good. We can bring the photo back in, and now this is starting to really take shape. I pulled a couple stickers from the coordinating sticker sheet. This one says Live Life in Full Bloom, and I kind of thought that might work as the third square over there, but I don't know. It's almost like two titles, which you can have subtitles, but it's just not quite right. I was thinking about putting my journaling down here. There's this little tag, and I can layer a couple different elements with this one here. I like that better. We can also add the journaling right here as well. But I do have this stamp set. It's called Happy Snail Trail, and I think these little snails are adorable and they go along with the gardening theme. So I'm going to stamp some of these and color them in coordinating colors.
I will stamp these right onto some White Daisy scrap cardstock, and these are cute because you've got 3 of them and they are crawling in different directions. I want them slithering into the layout. Let's go ahead and use this big one here, and then we will stamp this little guy here. They have cute little flowers on their shells. They're just adorable, which is funny because if you're a gardener, you don't want snails in your garden, but for some reason these guys are cute, so they can stay. I've mentioned this before, but just be mindful when you're squeezing them onto, scraps of cardstock that you leave enough space around your images for the coordinating die because the die is slightly larger than the stamped image itself. So let's do this little guy also. I think we can fit all 3 on here. He's pretty tiny. Right about there. Now I will give this several minutes to dry, and then I've selected some marker colors. We've got light yellow, pale pink shades, and brown gray blend. I'm starting with the darkest of the pale pink shades, and I'm following the swirl of the snail's shell. Now, I'm not going to get crazy fancy here, but I am going to do some ink blending. So on the edges, it's going to be darker, kind of towards the bottom. It's darker where areas get tighter. There's really no wrong way to do this. You could have just a dark color on the bottom and then have the sun coming down from the top. But I just want to accentuate the roundness of his shell. So I am lightening up as I go into the center of that biggest section there. I find it helpful to go in little circular motions when you're blending out those edges. So for this little snail's body, I'm going to use the brown gray. I'm going to put the darkest color on the bottom and on the back side of the little snail. So the sun is, coming in at the snail's face. So that's going to be the lightest area. Sorry if this section is too quick, but nobody really wants to watch me coloring for about 5 minutes, which is probably what this took. We'll add a little yellow to the flower, and I'll do the rest off camera. So now I can go ahead and get these die cut with the coordinating dies. I will add a little post-it removable tape to hold those in place, and now we have our cute little custom snail ephemera. I mentioned earlier I want these little guys crawling into the layout, so we've got 2 facing right and 1 facing kind of any direction, really. It's just going up. So we could put that there, but I usually like to put the larger elements towards the bottom, so let's switch those. I also have these stickers from the coordinating sticker sheet. They're little like pennant banners in different shapes and colors, and I thought it might be fun to add a little swoop across the corner here. I don't know if I really like this one and this one too close to that background paper. I like the pink. I've got an idea actually. Many of you may have this in your stash. It was super popular. It's called the Penant banner alphabet, and I totally bought this for those little pennant dies. They also have some background stamps. The alphabet font is cute too, but I'm going to just use these patterns here. Now I want to match that sticker up top there. So I have selected some Flamingo paper and Flamingo ink. We're going to do some tone on tone stamping to give these, some character. So we've got this little just grid pattern, and then we have a stripe, and we also have the polka dots. I think that ought to be enough. So I'll go ahead and die cut all 4 of these little die shapes. Now you can cut these by hand. It's not hard to cut the little banner tails or triangles. So keep that in mind if you don't have this die set. But I do like the added stitching detail on the top. So these are really nice to have. Plus it just makes them consistent, and it has those nice die cut edges. You know what I mean? So I'm going to put the scallop in the center because it's the odd man out. And then we will kind of just get these swooped right. I don't want the polka dots near the polka dots, so I'm just switching those around. And that is really cute. I love it. Now our little snail is looking lonely up there, so I cut a tag, and this watering can is so cute. It's from the same stamp set as our title, the Gnomes for Spring Scrapbooking, and this tag is from the Honey Bunny collection. So actually let's cut that off. We can actually use that for another tag topper on another project. So we'll just kind of create a little embellishment cluster up here, and we've got our watering can, the little snail. Maybe we want to kind of frame it in. Maybe something like that. Now I also have some stickers from the sticker sheet. This one here says cherish this life, and then lovely, and then the heart, which matches the banner up top. So I want to create kind of a little cluster down in the corner here, and I don't have a lot of room, so we're just going to frame in the corner with these smaller pieces. Maybe we can try this one layered maybe here. I like it up top. That looks good.
Now I've been staring at this and I feel like it needs flowers because we've got all these flowers. So these were sitting on my shelf. I actually pulled them off of a picture frame and I thought I would use them on a card or something. But it's not the same pink, it's close. But I just kind of thought, well, maybe we could try these. I actually sent a picture of this to my bestie, Bonnie, and we both agreed that it needs flowers. But these aren't quite right. The color's off and I don't know, it's just not what I'm envisioning. I took a second look at my stamp collection and I have this one. It's called Rain or Shine and it's super cute. I have not used it yet, but these rubber boots with this floral bouquet might look super cute. You can also turn the umbrella upside down. Let me show you the catalog. It's always fun to look at the artwork and get ideas, and this is really good size. You can use it on a card, but it is scaled perfectly for scrapbooking. So there's the boots. Looks like they've stamped them on pattern paper, and then they have the flowers, but you can also put the flowers in the umbrella. My friend Melanie actually recreated this layout using different colors and whatnot, and it's super cute. You should definitely check out her video. I'll leave it listed in the description box below. But yeah, let's try this in that area and see how that looks.
I went ahead and mounted both of those stamps to the door of my mini Misty. We're going to stamp them on White Daisy cardstock. Now, I mentioned the catalog example used pattern paper. That is such a fast and fun way to add interest to your outline stamps, but I'm going to color these in with my marker. I think it needs one more layer, but something to be mindful of, the more layers you apply with your Misty, the longer it's going to take for this image to dry before you can color it. So just something to remember. My mom is wearing that beautiful kind of deep lagoon glacier color, so I grabbed some glacier cardstock to match my color swatches here. And this chart is a freebie from Close to My Heart. It was in a blog post from several years ago, so I'll leave that in the description box below also. I have selected the Aqua Blue blend, and I want to have kind of a highlight in the center of these boots. So I am using the darkest color around the outside edge. I'm just putting a line really quickly so that I don't go out of the lines. And then I'm going to use kind of flick-like motions to drag the color inward. So I've switched to the medium here. And now I'm going to draw a highlight. I don't know if you can see that. I actually drew a little oval shape around a highlight, so I remember not to color that area. And then we will just add some details to the darker areas in the base around the edge of the boots. This whole process took me about 5 minutes. I'm going to do the rest off camera so you don't have to watch that. But again, here on the bottom, I'm leaving a highlight on the highest point where there would be a natural reflection. And a little brown gray for the sole.
Just to save a little bit of time, I colored the second boot and the floral bouquet off camera. I chose the same colors I used for the snails. So I've got light yellow and then pale pink shades and pale pink blend. The blends are lighter than the shades, and then aqua for the boots, and then the leaves are light green blend. So I'll go ahead and get these die cut and I'll be right back.
I don't mind taking the time to stamp and color images like this. Even if I don't end up using them on this project, they look beautiful on cards or will come in handy for another project. But you know what? That is super cute. I am really loving that. That looks better than the tag. But now that means we need another one. I went ahead and stamped and colored this the exact same way so we can tuck it in our cluster up top. Oh, that looks really, really pretty. Let me pull this up, layer this right kind of in here, overlapping the photo. I think these flowers are really complementing the photos, and this was definitely what it needed. So you know what we can do here is actually trim off the portion that's hidden behind the tag and drop this down to the lower right hand corner. So I'm not being super careful. I'm just kind of roughly snipping around those flowers, and then we can use this little piece here just peeking out in this area here. I've documented lots of photos of my mom gardening and us plant shopping, but I never get tired of it because it's just so her, and these photos really make me happy. So I'm trying to work all of these little guys in here. I like this heart down here, so I think that works. Everybody's fitting nicely together here to frame in that photo. And now I'm going to pop up just a few elements. So the boots, I'm going to adhere to, when you know it, you always run out of tape. Let me pop a new one in. The boots, I'm going to adhere flat to the layout, and then we'll pop up the flowers and the snail. If you don't want the thickness of foam tape, just use the same die cut to die cut some scraps of paper and layer them underneath to get a little bit of dimension. I'm sure you've seen me do that here before on my channel. I want to scoot those down just a bit there. And then we can bring our little snail in. These non-stick scissors are awesome. So I did stock up. I bought an extra pair of those. Hopefully they'll last me a very long time. I will add foam tape to the little snail on the right-hand side and the watering can at the top of the page also. So we still need journaling lines. I'm going to flip my mat over and stamp with these little lines here from the All Day Every Day. You may have this stamp set in your collection. It's a fun one. We're going to use the same charcoal ink. Move it around on your block. Make sure you don't have any ink on the edges of your block. When I make a stamping mistake, that's usually where I go wrong. So just do a quick visual inspection and let's see, that looks great. As I mentioned, I do scrapbook a lot of gardening photos of my mom, so I don't have a big story to tell for these photos, but do want to jot down the date and a few other details. So you can see I added the enamel dots to the banner up top there and a few random enamel dots from the Honey Bunny collection to the other embellishment clusters, and I'm super happy with how this one turned out. We had a lot of options for that lower left corner, but I am happy with the one I settled on. Everything I used can be found in the description box below, along with those other videos I talked about. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and I'll see you very soon here on YouTube.